I want you to imagine you take your car to the mechanic. The check engine light is on, it's making a weird clunking noise, and it smells like burning toast. And no, you're not having a stroke. You drop it off. The mechanic says, "Don't worry, I've got an intervention." You come back a week later. The car runs perfectly. No noise, no smell. You are thrilled. You pull out your wallet and ask, "Wow, what did you do? Did you replace the transmission? Did you fix the timing belt? Did you just change the oil?" And the mechanic looks at you, shrugs, and says, "Honestly, I have no idea. I just threw a bunch of parts at it, yelled at it for 20 minutes, and put a sticker on the bumper that says, 'Drive safe.' And now it works. That'll be $5,000. You would never accept that from a mechanic. You would never accept that from a doctor. But, folks, that is exactly what we accept from the safety profession every single day. We buy the training, we implement the software, we hang the posters, and if injuries go down, we pat ourselves on the back. But if you ask us why injuries went down, we shrug. We point to the culture, we point to the mindset. We rely on magic. Well, a new massive report just dropped that looked at thousands of studies, and it confirmed my darkest suspicion. We are operating in a black box. It's an all-new Prove It To Me. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Prove It To Me. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Law. I hope you're having a good week. I hope your leading indicators are trending up and your blood pressure is trending down. I was sitting in my office the other day, procrastinating on something, probably, and I picked up the January issue of Professional Safety. That's the journal for the American Society of Safety Professionals, or ASSP. Now, usually I flip to the Safety Matters section to see who got promoted or what new regulation OSHA is delaying this week, but this time a headline grabbed me. It read, "Report explores how EHS professionals and researchers work together to increase safety." Okay, sounds nice. Sounds fluffy. Working together. Cue the Barney theme song. But then I read the summary. It referenced a report by the Lloyd's Register Foundation, and the summary said something that made me spill my coffee. It said, "Policymakers and practitioners cannot be certain that interventions are safe and effective without good evidence." It went on to say that a review of the evidence showed that while many interventions seem to work, the studies are limited by bad methodology, lack of clarity on what safety means, and here's the kicker, few studies showing how and why interventions lead to safety outcomes. This is the holy grail, folks. This is what I scream about on this podcast every month. So naturally, I didn't stop at the professional safety blurb. I went to the Lloyd's Register Foundation website. I found the Global Safety Evidence Center, and I downloaded the full technical report. It's called Occupational Safety and Health Interventions, the State of the Evidence. And today, we are going to tear it apart. First, let's check the vitals. Who wrote this? This comes from the Lloyd's Register Foundation. If you don't know them, they are a massive global charity based in the UK. They fund a lot of high-level research. They aren't selling a specific safety product. They aren't trying to sell you a subscription to a SaaS platform. Their goal is engineering a safer world. So the bias here is minimal, or at least their bias is toward effectiveness, not profit. What did they do? This isn't a study of 20 people in a warehouse. This is an evidence review. Specifically, it's a review of reviews. They looked at systematic reviews of EHS interventions. Then, they looked at 53 individual primary studies published since 2015 to see what the new science looks like. They covered everything: regulation, training, behavioral interventions, health surveillance, fatigue management. And the conclusion? The conclusion is basically we have a lot of data, but we don't have a lot of answers. Let's start with where this research comes from. The report includes these heat maps of where the safety studies are conducted. And if you know anything about academic research, you can probably guess what the map looks like. It is heavily skewed toward the global north: Europe, North America, Australia. There were a decent number of studies from China and Hong Kong, but Africa, South America, Southeast Asia, almost blank. In social sciences, we call this the weird population: Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic. Why does this matter? The International Labor Organization, ILO, estimates there are 3 million deaths and 395 million non fatal injuries every year. Where are most of these happening? They aren't happening in a pristine ISO 45001 certified manufacturing plant in Germany. They are happening in developing economies. They are happening in informal sectors. So, we have this massive disconnect. We are studying safety in the places that are already the safest. And we are assuming that an intervention that works in a unionized American factory will work in a garment factory in Bangladesh. That is a dangerous assumption. Culture matters. Resources matter. Regulatory enforcement matters. If our evidence base is only telling us how to be safe in rich countries, we are failing the global workforce. Here's another finding that made me chuckle, because I see it all the time in my own literature searches. They broke down the studies by industry sector. The number one most studied sector? Healthcare. Healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, hospital staff. Why? Is it because healthcare is the most dangerous job? It's dangerous, sure. Needle sticks, patient handling, violence. But is it more dangerous than deep sea fishing, logging, mining? No. The reason healthcare is overrepresented is because doctors and nurses write papers. They are academics. They work in teaching hospitals. If a nurse implements a new safety protocol, they publish it in a medical journal. If a construction foreman implements a new scaffold check, they go to lunch. They don't write a paper about it. So we have this massive evidence base for how to stop nurses from hurting their backs, and a comparatively tiny evidence base for how to stop loggers from getting crushed. The report highlights this gap. We need more research in the dirty jobs. We need researchers to get out of the hospital and onto the oil rig. Now we get to the philosophical meat of the report, because you know how much I love philosophy, but this part matters. One of the biggest critiques the authors had was that we cannot agree on what safety means. In the 53 reviews they looked at, they found a chaotic mix of outcome measures. Some studies measured injuries, which would be lagging indicators. Some measured illness and disease. Some measured safety climate, surveys asking how safe you feel. Some measured safety behavior, such as wearing PPE, following rules, etc. The problem is, these things don't always correlate. You can have a great safety climate score, where everyone loves the boss and everyone feels good, and still have high injury rates. You can have zero injuries, low lagging indicators, because everyone is terrified to report them, even though the safety behavior is terrible. The report states the evidence base lacks clarity and consensus on what is meant by safety and related concepts. If I'm testing a weight loss drug, the metric is simple. Did you lose weight? Pounds, kilograms. If I'm testing a safety intervention, the metric is mushy. Well, nobody died and 80% of people filled out the survey, so success? This makes it impossible to compare studies. If study A says training works because quiz scores went up, and study B says training failed because injury rates stayed flat, they are measuring two different things, but we treat them as equal evidence. This is my favorite part of the report. The authors call out the black box problem. They found that very few studies explained how or why the intervention worked. They lacked a theory of change. Let's look at an example. Let's say you implement a behavior based safety or BBS program. You have peer observers watching workers, and let's say injuries drop by 20%. Great, BBS works, but why did it work? Well, theory A, it worked because workers learned from the feedback, an educational mechanism. Theory B, it worked because workers knew that they were being watched and changed their behavior only while observed, which would be the Hawthorne effect. Theory C, it worked because management spent money on it and workers felt cared for, so morale improved, the social exchange theory. Theory D, it worked because you fired the three clumsiest guys before the program started. That's selection bias. The report says that most studies don't bother to test the theory. They just report the outcome. Intervention leads to the outcome. Now, why is this a problem? Because if you don't know why it works, you can't replicate it. If theory B, the Hawthorne effect, is the real reason, then as soon as you stop watching, the safety benefit disappears. If theory C is the reason, then you didn't need a BBS program, you just needed to buy them pizza and new boots. The authors explicitly recommend that researchers need to develop and test theoretical models linking workplace practices to outcomes. Don't just tell me it worked, tell me the mechanism of action. We need to treat safety like pharmacology. We need to know the mechanism of the molecule, not just that the headache went away. Now, I want to get a little technical on the study design here because this is where many safety professionals get duped by vendors. The report notes that a huge number of studies rely on before and after designs, also called pre-post designs, without a control group. Here is the scenario. Last year, you had 10 recordable injuries. It was a bad year. The VP is screaming. So this year, you hire Super Safe Consultants Incorporated to do a training program. This year, you have 5 recordable injuries. Result, Super Safe Consultants reduced injuries by 50%. Wrong, or at least unproven. This is a statistical concept called regression to the mean. If you have an outlier year, a really bad year statistically, the next year is likely going to be better, even if you do nothing. If you flip a coin and get 10 heads in a row, the next 10 flips will probably have fewer heads. That isn't because the coin learned, it's because the first run was a fluke. Without a control group, a similar factory that didn't get the training, you cannot say that the training caused the drop. Maybe production slowed down. Maybe you laid off new hires. Maybe the weather was better. The Lloyd's report calls for more robust designs. They want randomized control trials, or RCTs. RCTs are the gold standard. You take 2 identical groups, randomly assign the intervention to one, and compare. In medicine, you can't get a drug approved without RCTs. In safety, we almost never do them. Why? Because they are hard, they're expensive, and honestly, it's ethically tricky. Hey, Group A gets the life saving harness. Group B, good luck. Okay, obviously we can't do that, but we can do RCTs with training methods, with audit styles, with communication strategies. So the report paints a picture of a field that is well intentioned but scientifically immature. What do they suggest we do about it? They offer 5 key recommendations. Number 1, clearly describe populations and settings. Stop saying this works for workers. Say this works for male migrant construction workers in urban environments. Specificity matters. Number 2, develop and test theoretical models. Open the black box. Tell us the mechanism. Number 3, identify research priorities with practitioners. This is a big one. They want researchers, like me, to talk to practitioners, like you. Are we studying the things you actually struggle with? Or are we studying obscure topics because we can get a grant for them? The report says there is a gap. Practitioners need solutions for mental health, gig work, AI safety. Researchers are still publishing papers on proper lifting techniques. We need to align the agenda. Number 4, seek expert guidance on study design. Get a statistician involved before you start the program. Don't just collect data in a spreadsheet and hope it makes sense later. Number 5, work toward consensus on definitions. We need a standard dictionary for safety. What is a safety incident? What is a near miss? If we can't agree on the words, we can't agree on the numbers. Have you ever heard of ASTM E2920? There's a new 2026 version. Okay, so that's the report. It's 50 plus pages of we need to do better. But what does this mean for you, the safety manager in the trenches? It means you need to be a skeptic. When a vendor comes to you with a quote-unquote proven solution, ask them for the evidence. And when they hand you a white paper, look at it. Is it just a before and after study? Is it a case study of one company? Does it explain why it works? Or does it just use buzzwords like neurosafety or paradigm shift? If they can't explain the mechanism and they can't show you a control group, keep your checkbook in your pocket. Also, it means you are the scientist. Every time you implement a new policy, you are running an experiment. Treat it like one. Don't just change the rule and walk away. Measure the baseline. Define your success metric clearly. Is it a behavior? Is it climate? And try to figure out why it's happening. Talk to your workers. Ask them, hey, we started this new thing. Is it actually changing how you work? Or is it just annoying? That qualitative data is the key to opening the black box. The Lloyd's Register Foundation has done us a huge service here. They've held up a mirror to the profession, and honestly, the reflection is a little blurry. We have a lot of passion. We have a lot of activity, but we lack the rigorous evidence to prove that what we are doing is actually saving lives. We have to move from safety faith to safety science. We have to stop throwing parts at the car and hoping the noise stops. We have to learn how the engine works. I'm going to link the full report in the show notes. I highly recommend you download it. It's heavy reading, but even just skimming the gaps section will make you smarter than 90% of the consultants trying to sell you stuff. One last side note, I did submit a media inquiry to the Lloyd's Register Foundation in hopes that I could get one of the folks involved with the report to sit for an interview on the podcast. Fingers crossed. That's it for this Study Finds episode. I'm going to go work on my own theoretical model, the relationship between bourbon consumption and grading efficiency. I suspect there is a bell curve involved. As always, if you have research that you want to share on the podcast, whether it's your own or just a really cool study you found, or some research you've been able to effectively put into practice, send me an email at contact@proveitpod.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Matt Law. Thanks for listening to the Prove It To Me podcast. Take care and stay safe, everyone. Prove It To Me is produced by me, Matt Law. Original music by Wes London. You can find this podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Like what you've heard so far? Please like, subscribe, and follow wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Got questions about what we talked about or research that you want to share? Send an email to contact@proveitpod.com. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily represent the official position, opinion, or strategies of their employers or companies. Examples of research and data analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based on very limited, often single use case, and sometimes dated information. Assumptions made within this discussion about research and data analyses are not necessarily representative of the position of the host, the guests, or their employers or companies. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast. The presentation of the content by the guests does not necessarily constitute an active endorsement of the content by the host.